and welcome to the Monday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm your host, John Gonzalez, along with our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, and fresh off a Drake concert that produced some very interesting pre-show conversation. Ashley Nicole Moss is here.
Glad I could provide the vibes, guys.
What up, Ash? Hey, John.
You want to give the listeners like the abridged version of what just happened?
I went to the Drake concert last night, and my friend got comp tickets, and I went because I'm a huge J. Cole fan. He's on tour with J. Cole right now. I was unaware of the fact that J. Cole's attendance on the tour is over. Like, he's not doing any more dates. So I felt somewhat bamboozled because I feel like she knew that and didn't tell me, because then I wouldn't have gone. I'm not like a overly like Drake stan. I do like his music. I know a lot of his music, but I would never like go see him in concert type of fan. But he's beefing with Kendrick Lamar right now, for those who don't know. And he, fired shots back at Kendrick, who fired shots at him. And also, like, full disclosure, I felt like the oldest person in the room at 30. I did not realize his fan base was so young. They're like high school kids.
Tough
weird.
When you're the oldest person at 30. That would make Bill and I definitely the oldest people.
But it also led to my life every time I go to a concert.
It also led to a conversation about, like, it spiraled into this conversation about music you can't play in public. And then we got to Mel Gibson somehow. So
and then I was saying, because Will brought up Kanye, and I was like, people still play Kanye's music publicly. So I don't know if like Kanye falls in that specific category as like some of the other people we named. And then, he brought up all of Kanye's things, but I'm like, didn't Mel Gibson like go on to make more movies after that like whole fiasco?
Mel had Gibson. He had a spell where he was out, and Kanye, I feel like his music being played publicly again is new in the last couple months. I've noticed it. There was definitely a space there where he was just, you didn't hear him at all.
Yeah, well,
interesting pre-show meeting that we have.
He makes movies that nobody watches.
We'll have to spin that off into another conversation for another time. But in the interim, we encourage everybody to please download and follow a show that's already off the rails. Leave us a 5-star review. Later in this show, we're going to talk about have the Bucks. We're going to actually talk basketball on the show. Have the Bucks figured it out? ? And the Clippers collapse continues. I can't believe they lost to the hospital Sixers yesterday. Plus, speaking of singing, SGA and Chet kind of got a bop. We're going to talk about that later on as well. But
I'm so excited for that topic, John, because I heard Bill singing when he thought nobody was in the room.
I thought you guys couldn't hear me.
When we were waiting to go live, SGA might have a run for his money. Bill can carry a tune.
Are we, I don't want to step on your rundown, but are we going to get to Sixers power ranking surge? Are we, championships coming too later?
That comes later. I think we might have a special episode for the listeners about that. No, we have to start with the Warriors and the Rockets, which is the hottest conversation in the entire NBA. The Warriors lost to the Wolves on Sunday. Wolves had Nas and Gobert back. That certainly helped. But the Warriors have now lost 2 in a row, 6 of their last 10. They are only 1 game up on the Rockets. Just on Friday, Ashley, Bill and I were talking about this, and Bill goes, "Hey, maybe, what do you think? The Rockets?" And I was like, "No, there's not enough time."
You were so
Monday comes around, and I'm like, there might be enough time. It's actually very crazy. But Curry went for 31 in that game. No one else had more than Clay's 16 off the bench. Curry played 30 minutes in this game. He sat the back end of the third quarter. He re-entered in the fourth with just about 6 minutes left. Warriors go on to lose this game. Afterwards, people go, "Hey, Steve Kerr, how come you didn't play Steph Curry in the fourth quarter?" And this is what Steve Kerr had to say.
There was kind of that stretch in the fourth where you took time out with like 9 minutes left. I think you were down 4. Looked like you might go back to Steph, didn't, and then it was 8, and you did go back. Do you feel like that was one of the deciding stretches?
No. We got Chris Paul out there. We got Clay. We got Draymond. We got great players out there. So it's we can't expect to just ride Steph game after game after game. These last few weeks have been really tough. We've put the burden of this franchise on his shoulders for 15 years. We can't expect him to play 35 minutes. We got 5 games in 7 days on this road trip. So if you want to say that him playing 30 minutes instead of 32 is the difference in the win and the loss, I totally disagree with that. We're trying to win the game. We're trying to keep him fresh too.
Unpopular opinion. I
love unpopular opinions.
I was scouring Twitter, when he said this and the clip was going viral, and I follow a lot of Warriors fans, just a lot of people in LA, California, regardless. A lot of people had an issue with this. I actually don't like unpopular opinion. And I'll tell you why. Because the whole reason they went after Chris Paul was to do this very thing, to preserve Steph for when you need him the most, and that is the playoffs. Now, obviously, the Warriors are not in playoff contention. They're in play-in contention and hanging on by a thread. We'll dive into that in a second. But I mean, in a perfect world, the Warriors will make it into the play-in. And that's really when you want Steph playing his most minutes at his most healthy. If you're unable to rely on everybody else on the floor, especially when you have a team of future Hall of Famers, that is a problem that you should not have to rely on Steph constantly to bring you out of that hole, bring you out of that deficit, fix that problem for you. So I personally agree with what Kerr's saying. If he's saying the difference of 30 and 32 minutes is what makes or breaks a game, we have bigger problems than whether or not I'm playing Steph Curry more minutes. And I absolutely agree with that. 100%.
Yeah. I'll back up what Ash said, John, and I'm not sure where you come down. For me, it's a balancing act, and it's a needle that has to be thread. Steph has to be right for the playoffs for the Warriors to have whatever minuscule chance they have now, but you have to win enough games that Houston doesn't catch you. So Kerr's he's got to get it right, and I'm not sure it's easy, John.
I mean, all right, look, in a vacuum, he's right. The difference between 30 and 32 minutes, not that big a deal. Right now, as they're trying to secure a play-in spot and they get the Rockets breathing down their neck, he was +6 when they were +6 when he was on the court yesterday, and they were -10 when he was off. He played 35 minutes versus the Pacers the other night. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got to rest him because whatever. Here's my thing. Yeah, he's right that they've been riding Steph Curry for his entire career. And that's the reason why the Warriors franchise fortunes have been buoyed. But like, what, all of a sudden on March 24th on a Sunday, you're like, that's enough? No, I can't ride Steph Curry anymore.
I think it tells you that they're not worried about the Rockets. I mean, the other thing is, I don't think they're worried about the Rockets. You weren't worried about the Rockets on Friday. Producer Aaron, who is a Warriors fan,
it's Monday though.
He's not, and the Warriors have an easier schedule down the stretch, but they've got the Heat coming up. They've got the Magic coming up. I think they've got an easy game next Friday, that Charlotte or somebody, but they've got Denver coming to town the week after that. So there are some games that Golden State can still lose. So I think part of this is Steve Kerr and everyone else not worrying about the Rockets when maybe you should a little bit.
Maybe they should.
Like, I mean, it does sound like it's a combination of both of what you guys are saying, because if they're not worried about the Rockets the way that maybe some people think that they should be, then to John's point, because it is weird that like out of the blue, all of a sudden you adapt this new philosophy when that's really not how you've been playing Steph Curry for the majority of the season and his entire tenure as a Golden State Warrior while you've been his head coach. So in that regard, I agree with John. It's like, you just woke up and decided that, that's how you're going to do things. But to your point, Bill, it could be because, look, they're not really concerned about the Rockets. So therefore, this is where we're going to flip the switch on how we're going to utilize Steph Curry, because he's more valuable to us then than he is right now, because the guys that we do have on the floor in those certain situations should be able to win games and hold off a team that we're already not worried about. So I can understand it. But to John's point, it is kind of weird that you just decided to flip that switch just randomly. Like,
I mean, I think they're garbage without Steph. I mean, they're sort of garbage even.
They're kind of garbage anyway right now.
Yeah, they're garbage.
I was going to say, like, post All-Star break, Bill, 12th in defensive rating, 15th in offensive rating. They're a middle of the pack team. And producer Aaron, who's a noted Warriors fan, very despondent that they kind of handed that game away yesterday when they don't have a cushion here. They have a the sixth easiest remaining schedule the rest of the way. Okay, we're under 10 games now. What are we doing? What are we talking about? Whether your schedule's easy or not, it's go time right now.
They can lose. They can lose to the Heat. The Magic. They can lose to the Magic the way they're playing now. They probably will lose to Denver in a week and a half. Actually, it's 2 weeks from tomorrow or a week from tomorrow. I'm so bad at dates. Whatever. I mean, there's a momentum thing that's going on, right? If all of a sudden the Rockets are up a game or up half a game and there's 6 left, who cares what the strength of schedule is? All of a sudden I think you started to see panic time, John, a little bit from Kerr. I think part of that reaction too is him understanding I messed up and this is significant. Let's play it. Let's downplay it.
We've had this conversation several times on the podcast. John and I actually had it on Spotlight last week, and everybody said it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Are you guys now on my side that it could happen? Like
I was don't let me into that group. I got
Bill.
Bill was more bullish in Bill's defense than I was on Friday. But then here's what happened. 2 days went by. And I came here on Monday and I'm like, wait a minute, this could actually go down. According to the various statistical models, it's still pretty unlikely. They have somewhere between, the Rockets do, somewhere between like a 15 to 20% chance to actually pull this off. But they've won 8 in a row, 9 of their last 10. 6 of those, by the way, after Alper and Şengün went down. And after Şengün went down, I was like, well, that's it for this team. And I think it's really impressive what Ime Udoka is building in Houston right now, post All-Star break.
Yes.
9th in defensive rating, which is a classic Ime kind of team, right? Play through your defense. 13th in offensive rating, which is very surprising to me. But I guess it shouldn't be because Jalen Green is playing out of his head. Ashley and I buried Jalen Green on a CBS Sports property prior to the launch of the show. And then since then, he's been lights out. This is what I want to run past you guys.
He has a new, he has stuff to work for. You know what I mean?
He does. I mean, this is what I want to run past you guys. Clearly, the Rockets are on the rise. They're going to be a team to look for next year. Bill and I were talking about how deep the West is and how basically absent the Portland Trailblazers, you could make a case for every single team being relevant next season in the Western Conference. But this is for right now. Who do you want to be in the 10 spot? I think it would be more interesting if it was the Rockets.
Oh, get John. That's crazy talk.
I'm serious.
No.
I think it'd be such
a Rockets Lakers play-in would not be as exciting as a Warriors Lakers play-in. The battle of Steph and LeBron. You don't know how many more of those that you have.
Come on, that's ridiculous.
That's not
true.
true.
You get on me for my thing sometimes. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard you say.
I haven't made the case yet. Let me make the case. Yes, you make a great point, Ashley, that Steph versus LeBron is always a classic, and you know we don't know how many of those we have left. That's a very good point. It's probably the best point. It might, however, be the only point because absent that, right? Who's the more compelling team right now? You've got this young team on the rise that's playing really good team basketball, and outside of Steph Curry, the Warriors do not look good right now. Who's the second best player on the Warriors right now? Is it Clay? I guess it's been Clay recently. Maybe Draymond. Like
nobody
the team looks
cares
awful.
About the Rockets outside of Houston and maybe this
nobody
podcast.
cares. Though.
Everybody cares about the Warriors. Come on,
nobody cares.
No, dude, I'm not even gonna be nice here. That is ridiculous. That's an absurd take.
Now, if the Warriors
are you okay?
If it were a different team, that they were possibly taking that 10th spot from, like, let's say it was, let me go ahead and look. Like, let's say it was a Phoenix or it was Utah or a Memphis. Then we'd be having a different conversation. Then it's like, maybe the Rockets, but like Warriors, Lakers, like even though LeBron and Steph may be the only point, and I agree with you at this point, it kind of is the only silver lining in the situation. That's enough. It's enough. That's enough.
You broke my brain, bro.
Me up.
You did bring up
my brain.
I do want to say something real quick.
See, they want the Rockets.
No, wait. This is I want to give you my absolute like dream NBA nerd scenario. It would be the number 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder against the 8th seed and ascendant want to be the Oklahoma City Thunder Houston Rockets. Now that would be fun basketball for me.
Adam Silver's head will explode if he listens to this.
Can we just talk about real quick? You brought up Ime Udoka. Yeah, can we just say in hindsight, Bob Myers looks like a psychic because he clearly knew something that the rest of us didn't, because when that move happened, we were all taken aback. Like in the basketball, we're like, what the hell? He built this team. He's just going to abandon ship. Like the captain's supposed to go down with their ship. He saw this thing had multiple holes in it. And he was like, this is not the Titanic. I ain't going down with you guys. Sorry. Hey, Bill.
That's just me.
Took a ISO for those of you watching on YouTube. You got a ISO on Bill there. This is a great
outrage
point
on the Rockets take.
This is an excellent point about Bob Myers abandoning ship because he looks like a genius, right? Bill and I were talking about this a little bit on Friday. First of all, he's been surprisingly good as an analyst on ESPN and a color guy.
Good.
Outstanding.
Well, I mean, I like Bob Myers a lot. I think he's extremely smart. He built a dynasty. I just didn't know that it would translate to TV, but getting out in time was smart.
Sorry to jump in. He did broadcasting before he became a GM here in LA. He did was it Bruins games? I just found this out. He to get
really?
himself through college at AM 570 here in LA. So that's
what can't he do?
Nothing.
Including save himself from this pending disaster of,
No, but to
the
your
Warriors.
point, John, it's interesting because somebody who had such a hands-on presence in building this team essentially abandons it when you realize, or when you think, and the general public thinks, the window is still very much open. And then as the season progresses, you start looking at him and saying, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, he saw the ship kind of going down. And although I feel like there's been moments of glimmer of light, like, oh my God, like the window may still very much be open. The situation the Warriors are in right now, the situation that there has been throughout the season, whether it's Kuminga and Steve Kerr going at it, whether directly, indirectly, like, there's just been so many instances where it's like, okay, like, he knew something we didn't, and now he looks a little bit more genius than we gave him credit for. I'm perplexed.
So, John, I reported this last fall, and it kind of went into the ether, but I'll bring it up again. People close to Myers told me when he stepped away that the job that he wanted, didn't know if it would be open. It's obviously not going to be open, and I'm not saying this to mess with you. I swear to you, the job that he wanted was the Sixers job. And because I remember talking to people close to him who thought if he went, they might be able to go with him, who thought there was a world. And I remember saying, I don't think Morey's on his way out. And, GMs aren't supposed to sort of take
this
other
was
people's
with
jobs.
Morey already installed there.
Yeah. So maybe even 2 years ago. I wish I could remember the exact dates, but there was definitely a world where before Bob Myers left, and there was speculation that might leave during that negotiation with ownership, right? Where it was sort of, will he stay? Won't he stay? What does he want? He found in a vacuum the Sixers job to be really intriguing. So someday, if Morey goes away, I think that's a realistic possibility.
Yeah, I'm fine with Daryl Morey. I think he's been a really, since he was hired to run the Rockets, he's been one of the best GMs in basketball. He hasn't won it all, but he's been one of the smartest guys in basketball for a very long time. I'm fine with him. Bob Myers, look, he's had an incredible career. I think he saw the writing on the wall, and also there was that contract dispute with Golden State where they were sort of drawing it out, and people were like, hey, are you going to pay Bob or what? And they just didn't get around to it in time, and he decided to hit the bricks, but it looks like he did it just in time. I'm just going to say this, before we go to break here. Team Rockets. We've been there and done that with the Warriors. We've seen it a zillion times. I'm here for fresh blood.
I'm auditioning for first take right now.
Get one West Coast team. You got to pick one. Is it OKC or is it Houston?
That's what I'm saying. I would like to see those two play each other. We're going to take a quick break, and then on the other side, we're going to talk about a little bit about the Thunder, but also about the team that they just lost to, the Bucks, who all of a sudden playing much better. That's next.
For the last 4 years, I have been a prisoner of this hotel.
G-sharp, I believe.
Why are they keeping you here? Why do they let you live?
Most of my friends are dead. My house was seized and burned.
You must never leave. If you do, I'll be waiting.
They can take away everything. But they can't take away who you are.
To Beyond the Arc. She's Ashley. He's Bill. I'm John. Encourage you guys to check us out on YouTube. We go live every day, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, where you can find us Beyond the Arc CBS. Subscribe to our page, hit the like button, leave a comment. You get to see Bill in an ISO cam randomly. Very exciting stuff. I want to get into the Bucks. There it is, the full shot of Bill. I love that. That's going to be huge for the downloads and the ratings. All right, so we had all three of us.
Ash, thanks. What's with the straight? All right, I take it back. The Rockets. It's what everybody wants to see. Go Rockets.
Listen, I like basketball. This is a fun basketball team.
Do you? I am doubting that based on
Listen,
that.
you know how I can't believe we're doing more Rockets, but you know how on Alperen Şengün I was earlier in the season, and now without him, look at them rise. I'm just throwing that out there. All right, back to the case at hand here. The Milwaukee Bucks. The three of us had besmirched the Milwaukee Bucks. We had a good time laughing at Doc Rivers. He stumbled out of the gate. They started out 3-7 going into the All-Star break. He gave a zillion quotes, none of which were helpful. Since the All-Star break, though, all of a sudden, have they figured it out? They're 11-4, 4th in offensive rating, 14th in defensive rating, and they just beat the Thunder last night. They look really good.
6 in net rating. Yeah, they've They've been outstanding. Ashley, I'll say this, and I'll be curious your take. Then I'm going to give on the back end. I really went geeky on some stats. I always thought Doc Rivers would come out of the gate hot, that the Bucs would play really well with him at the helm, and that the real question, and I know where I come down on guessing, but the real question would be the playoffs. So I think he's gotten the match to where I think most of us expected, which is a vastly improved defensive effort and a team. As John said, this isn't true over his 25 games that he's been the coach, but over the last 15, they've been really, really good since the All-Star game. They have been.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Giannis comes back, 30 points from him, 19 rebounds, great game, dominant game. Right now, sitting at the second seed in the Eastern Conference. Listen, I don't think anybody really assumed that offensively this team wouldn't be good. They were offensively good when Adrian Griffin was there. You have Giannis, you have Damian Lillard, you have a bunch of just dominant supporting cast members around them. Defensively, they obviously have gotten a lot better. I think for me, though, the two biggest question marks, though, that I have about this team moving forward is the health of the guys that they need to be healthy to go ahead and compete against a Boston Celtics team that's fully loaded. And that's not a knock to the Bucks. We've seen Giannis in and out of the lineup. We've seen Chris Middleton in and out of the lineup. You can't afford to not have. Yeah. Well, you can't afford to not have both of them, and you can't really afford to not have one of them, especially in a 7-game series against the Boston Celtics, which I still think it's going to be Milwaukee, Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then on the other side of that, if that is the situation at hand, I don't know how much faith I have in Doc Rivers to make the proper adjustments, because I have not seen that Doc Rivers in the postseason successfully since the Boston Celtics. And
he's made some adjustments in the regular season, though, right? I mean, he is kind of doing it.
Well,
different game. He's a phenomenal regular season coach. That's never been an issue with Doc Rivers. It's when you get into it, when it actually counts, when you're trying to go to the mountaintop, is he the coach that can take you there? And we have seen time and time again, for one reason or another, he isn't. And that for me is a huge question mark. And I still stand by that question mark. I'm not a believer just yet. I know he can do this in the regular season.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, until he gets out of the second round again, last 2 stops, didn't do it with the Sixers, didn't do it with the Clippers. People are going to ask that. Bill, hit me with some nerd stuff. You got stats.
All right. So this is going to be the old Mark Twain. There are lies, damn lies, and statistics. You can make numbers the wire, right? You can juke numbers to do whatever you want. But I do find the last 15 games under Doc Rivers that you gave us, which is the exact number since the All-Star game, to be fascinating. And it does bode really well. In fact, those numbers don't entirely include a large sample size with Chris Middleton. He's back, but not for the majority of those games. So in theory, the offense just gets better, right? The team just gets better. But I wanted to find a way to sort of look at Adrian Griffin in a similar light. So under what you gave us since the All-Star game, Doc got 10 games where he kind of struggled. And then we looked at the last 15. Let me give you, so it's games 11 to 25, right? Let me give you Adrian Griffin's games 11 to 25. So he gets a 10-game cushion at the start of the year, and then he gets 15 games, and he basically gets fired. But his numbers are even better. Top offensive rating over that stretch, 12th in defensive rating over those 15 games for Adrian Griffin's team. By far the highest stretch that he had, because obviously they were bad defensively. Second in net rating. So my point is this, and I talked to a scout about this today, and I don't think you need to be a scout to see. Even still, Giannis and Lillard, they look discombobulated when they play together, especially in closing time. I know they've won some games. They just don't look comfortable together. So I think time with these guys and time trying to make it work as a coach is significant. And if you give both Doc and Griffin a 10-game sort of head start to figure it out, they've both been exceptional after that stretch, which is to say, I'm not sure the team is that much better now than when Adrian Griffin was coaching, because they are still, those two guys, I think, to my eye, they don't look, John, and Ash, like they fit together on the floor. And Adrian Griffin's numbers were a lot better if you kind of get it into similar comps over the same timeline as where we are with Doc Rivers.
They're doing one thing that I thought they should have done under Adrian Griffin that they have done more of with Doc Rivers. And this is pretty obvious, I think, to everybody in the NBA, but it took Doc Rivers to implement it, which is run more pick and roll with Giannis and Dame. Right. I mean, this isn't like you've got your 2 best offensive players. One of them is a tank and the other one can score from anywhere on the floor. It would behoove you to get those 2 into some actions together. But we should also mention that Bill is writing about this topic for tomorrow. So be sure to check that out on cbssports.com.
I mean, to Bill's point, that's also, I didn't put that in my little list, but that also was a concern for me too, because we spoke about this, you and me, John. Dame's last 3 games without Giannis, 2-1 record, 41 points, 31 points, 32 points, absolutely dominant. And then last night, Giannis has 30, Dame
Yeah, he
has
didn't look good.
11. He absolutely just shrinks in the offense when Giannis is on the floor. And listen, understandably, that is going to happen to a degree. Giannis is the nucleus of this team. He's going to absorb a lot of the offensive schemes and ball handling. But the way that Damian Lillard's efficiency just absolutely drops a lot of the games that Giannis is on the floor is concerning, because you need these two guys to play together. Even Chris Middleton, who had 20 plus points in the last game before I believe Giannis returned, I want to say he had like 25, also had 11. Again, rebounds and assists, he had a triple double, so you can't go ahead and knock him too much. But Damian Lillard and Giannis as a tandem is a big question mark as well, because there's not that much time left, and you don't want to be figuring that out in the playoffs. I do think obviously they'll still win games because you're just that talented as individuals, but as a unit, you need to be like simpatico, if you will, to go ahead and even stand a chance against Boston. So that's a question mark for me too.
And to that point, Ash, it's a great point. I'll just add to it. The reality is that fans and media members, guilty too, will sometimes see stars come together and say that's going to work. But in reality, in practice, it usually takes at least a season. And I sort of, fall into this. It takes more than a year, because I covered that Heat team when LeBron first got there. I know they made the finals, but LeBron and Wade just never knew how to play together in year one. They did in year two. I think we're seeing some of that in Phoenix. So the idea that Lillard and Giannis were going to figure it out in year one was always wishful thinking based on just the history of guys coming together. And right or wrong decision, right? Argument, different time. To change the head coach in the middle of the season, in a lot of ways, resets their ability to build chemistry, because they've got to do something completely different together. So I also think, and I hate giving Doc the benefit of the doubt, but I think whatever happens to the Bucks this year, next year is a better way to evaluate how they play together, John, because it does take guys, even stars, time, a whole season often to figure out how to play together.
Yeah, it does. It takes time, but they do have a 3-game cushion for second in the Eastern Conference now. They have played better after the All-Star break. We crushed them before it. They're looking better. And I wanted to bring this up because they beat OKC last night. And I have been, as you guys know, and our dedicated listeners over the many, many years that we've done this show together have known that I'm very bullish on OKC. But if there's a blueprint for how to beat the Thunder, the Bucks provided it last night in 2 different ways. We've said quite a few times, and Bill and I discussed this last week as well, if there's an Achilles heel for OKC just on the floor, it's their size. And that's in terms of their height and also their mass, right? They're not big guys in terms of muscle, and they're not tall guys outside of Chet Holmgren, right?
They're still kids, largely.
They're still kids. They're growing into their bodies. They're not, what they love to do is create havoc defensively. They like to turn you over. They like to get out and transition and run. But if you can not turn the ball over, and if you can be bigger than them and dominate the boards, which pretty much everybody does against them, they're 28th in defensive rebounding, and they're 28th in opponents' offensive rebounding. So basically, they just get murdered on the boards all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They got crushed on the boards last night as well. So when you hold on to the ball and you keep them from getting out and running, it's a problem for them sometimes. And that was very much the case against the Bucks last night. So I don't know which Western Conference team would be best suited for that. Perhaps the Lakers, because they have so much size, but that is potentially an issue and could be a blueprint for some team looking to knock them off in the playoffs.
And look, the Bucks play, especially under Doc. I mean, those are men, and those are guys that know how to be physical and be physical with a team like the Thunder. So
they're
it's
all adults.
Yeah,
it's like Ashley at the Drake concert.
Right.
A whole bunch of 30-year-olds and then some 12-year-olds.
No, I saw a really interesting stat that blew my mind. So as you guys know, the tournament's going on, and they did the average age of the UNC men's team is like 22.8. It's the same average age as this OKC team.
Wow.
So that just puts into perspective how young this team actually is. Not only like in age wise, but to your point, build wise, they're still very much slim, slender. And yes, there are players who are naturally like that. Kevin Durant, obviously being one, the Slim Reaper. He's never really put on a lot of muscle mass. But like some of these guys are going to bulk up some more. Some of these guys are trying to bulk up some more. But when Giannis is coming at you in the lane, it's a little different than when you're going against a Jalen Green.
That's right.
So, I think that's going to be, and I wonder, we spoke to Baron Davis and, he said he kind of was in agreement with the whole fact that like young teams can't win. And I wonder if it's because not so much of their experience, but because a lot of the times they are built like this and you're going against grown men who have a lot more muscle mass, who have a lot more power, and you really haven't harnessed yours yet. I wonder if that's a reason that a lot of people have that, like, they just don't really
Playoffs
share.
are more physical. I mean, it definitely is a different game for a lot of different reasons. But I mean, as you mentioned, OKC Thunder, youngest team in the NBA. Future is now yet another reason why I'd like to see them face an ascendant,
not now.
Equally young Rockets team. Wouldn't that be intriguing? We're going to take another break. On the other side, we're going to talk about a team that is old and collapsing. That's the Clippers. And two of the OKC Thunder players have a new joint venture out that I think you guys will find interesting. That's next.
You came down here to tell us that your date is missing.
I did not get ghosted. I think he was taken.
You were dating as a way to face your divorce. Was I really the only thing holding you together, D?
Damn.
Ready or not,
I am in search of a man with whom I had a beautiful connection.
You can't hide.
If anything feels off, we'll go. Off.
Murderer.
Who are you?
Diara.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez, along with Bill Ryder and Ashley Nicole Moss. And gang, the Philadelphia 76ers were in town this weekend. They played the Lakers on Friday, and then they played the Clippers on Sunday. And guess who did not go to either game? This guy. Avoided it. Better for my mental health.
You got invited too.
For both games, I had invites. And I decided I can't do it. I've seen a lot of Sixers basketball in my life. But I just couldn't bring myself to drive downtown and see more in person. And yesterday, somehow, the Hospital Sixers beat the Clippers on their floor, and not just beat them, guys, ran them off the floor. In the fourth quarter, the Clippers looked absolutely lost. Kawhi decided to just sit out much of the fourth quarter. It was the Clippers' worst defensive effort in a month since they played the Atlanta Hawks. And it was the first time the Sixers have shot 50% from the floor and 40% from three in, like, I don't know, forever. So what's going on with the Clippers?
Before we answer that, I have a question.
You
said you didn't go to the game because you didn't want to make the drive downtown. Why doesn't LA have a mass transit system like we do in New York? Wouldn't that
why doesn't
solve
Iowa
half
have an
of your
ocean?
problems?
It actually does. Just no one uses it.
Does it have a mass transit system?
mean, it has.
There's
I know you guys have a train, but is it mass transit? Like you can take it everywhere and anywhere?
Well, buses exist. There is an is it the same as New York and Boston and DC? No, I mean, frankly, Philly is guilty of that as well. The subway system is essentially just a T. But Chicago has a great mass transit system, but everywhere. LA, part of the reason why, in addition to LA being a younger city than the ones you mentioned, it's sprawling. I mean, it's like the amount of area that it covers is considerably larger than all of those other cities. You can drive in LA for an hour and a half, even 2 hours, depending on traffic, and still be in LA.
Isn't that more of a reason to invest in mass transit?
I mean, Ashley, you're wading into some serious LA, like decades of debate. And John lives where John lives. John lives 30 minutes to 3 hours from crypto. That's the truth. That is a true. Oh yeah.
It depends on the traffic. It's very far.
It does.
Anyway, I wasn't going that far to watch the Sixers. But back to the point here. The Clippers were supposed to be contenders, and then all of a sudden it's quite clear that for the first seed, there's 3 teams, and the Clippers are not among them anymore. They are just a half game up on the Pelicans, and that home court advantage could be significant because right now on paper, I like the Pels a lot better than the Clippers. I like the Pels a lot better than the Clippers. What are you doing? Air quotes
home court advantage. Home court advantage.
That's a good point.
You don't buy it?
No, Clippers home court advantage.
I get you.
Yeah, it's a good. By the way, John, I want to throw this at you since we're just doing random stuff. When I was going back to the Doc Rivers research, do you know what team had the best net rating by far in the NBA 25 games into the season? The Philadelphia 76ers.
Why are you doing this to
beat the
him?
Clippers on Sunday. The team that showed shoots of life and resilience through the winter that is life without Embiid. And if he returns, to answer your question about the Clippers,
That was poetic.
Thank you. I'm trying to, get you excited. I don't know what's going on with the Clippers. I have no answer other than when you two correctly believe Paul George and Kawhi Leonard last week when they said we've got issues, and I sort of rolled my eyes, thought we hear this stuff all the time. I stand corrected. There's some dysfunction going on in that team and that locker room because those players called the fact that they what was it, John? Didn't have a direction or didn't know who they were.
Said they don't have an identity. Paul George said that we don't have an identity as the season funnels into the playoffs, which is not where you want to be.
I mean, listen, I never bought in on the Clippers train. They are who they thought they were. I obviously think that their talent as individuals will not allow them to completely fail. But as a unit, this is something that we've seen it in spurts. There was a part of the season where like, okay, the Clippers might have figured it out, but
December to like mid-February, they were the best team in the NBA.
A little bit after the All-Star break, I feel like but they're kind of going back to their beginning issues as individuals, and it's affecting the chemistry as a team, whatever chemistry they've been able to kind of create in the short time that they've played together. And now that the playoffs are approaching, this is what I feel like a lot of people were not high on the Clippers when, James Harden said it's scary hours and, we're going to show everybody. Like, first of all, everyone needs to stop using the phrase scary hours because when you use it, bad things happen. Secondly, this is what we've been waiting for. Is James Harden, is, Paul George, is Kawhi Leonard, are they going to be able to go ahead and fight back against the narrative that they're not able to get it done when it means the most, especially when you talk about James Harden? I have not seen anything in this last stretch of a few weeks that makes me think that this is going to be a team that can really upset some people in the playoffs. I feel like they're going to show us exactly who they are when it is the worst situation to do that. I'm not convinced. I am not convinced at this team whatsoever.
Let me run a theory by you guys that just occurred to me, and maybe this has nothing to do with it, but I'm curious. In the playoffs, there are guys that will hit a wall sometimes, right? Because it's obviously an extra 2 months, and if you sweep everybody 16 games, a lot of games. And I think part of the reason the Warriors broke down a few years ago is they just played postseason basketball again and again and again. The wear and tear, your body's not used to those extra games for some guys. Kawhi Leonard has not hit the 60-game mark. He has this year. This was the first time since the 18-19 season when he went to Toronto and won an NBA championship. He's not load managing the way that he used to. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that, John Ash, that he is out of gas, he is frustrated, his body is already feeling the wear and tear
all of it,
as a guy that never, ever prepared himself to go deep into a season? By the way, Paul George, exact same thing, especially since he came and became teammates with Kawhi. Maybe these guys are hitting the wall in March that you're not supposed to hit until end of May. And at that point, like a marathon, you're so close to the prize, at least then guys can push through.
I think all of it is true, but I think for me, the biggest issue is, that obviously is a concern because like you said, Kawhi's his middle name is load management. So like his body's probably not prepared. Paul George, you've seen him in the postseason, so I don't know if he's hitting the same wall Kawhi is. For me, the biggest issue is the fact that Harden left and wasn't available to the media. It's the regular season.
Oh, and you stepped on it. Oh, I was so excited about this. Bring this up. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Like here's my issue with that, right?
Please.
It's the regular season, James. Okay. Bill had to go. I mentioned James Harden. Bill got all choked up inside.
He got verklempt.
He'll be right back. Here's my issue with that. It is the regular season. And you had no problem speaking to the media when you guys were rocking and rolling and it looked like you were going to prove all the naysayers wrong. Then it was like, yeah,
but you know why it was. Well, you know why it was.
Right.
Who were they playing? He didn't want to face the Philly media. Philly media is in town. It's the first game. Look, this is the first of the 2 games. They still have one more game to play. He has to go to Philly and play the Sixers. Yes. And he's probably going to disappear out the back into a South Philly alley after that game too. But he didn't want any part of having to talk to the Philly media after losing to his former team on their own floor on Sunday. That doesn't surprise. That was the least surprising.
But that is
arguably the most delicious part of Sunday.
But that is problematic. I can understand the history aspect behind it, but it's problematic for me because that is the exact character assassination that James Harden claims exist about him. That he is somebody, when he doesn't get his way, he has tantrums. He doesn't get his way. He loses effort in a game. He loses interest in a game. All you showed is that the new James Harden that we have seen in spurts is not here to stay. And that the minute something does not go your way, you are going to revert to your old habits. And that is a problem because we have seen that James Harden in Philly. We saw that James Harden in the games that Joel Embiid wasn't available, how he gave us that one productive game. And then all of a sudden he loses interest and he gave us, what was it, like 6-7 points in a game 7? That is an issue. And all he did is show everybody that he is still the same James Harden when things do not go his way. And that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It has been.
So is my coughing choke.
So
you guys
Bill disappeared for a good portion of the show. He was dying on Friday. He was playing hurt, so he's still playing hurt right now. We're gonna wrap up the show shortly here, but there's one thing I wanted to run by you guys that really caught my interest. So I haven't watched a ton of March Madness because there's NBA. I know there's NBA, and I only have so much time for basketball.
I don't have time,
and so, but I did tune in. I just was flipping around whenever.
Which game?
I don't even remember the game because
Caitlin Clark tonight.
That wasn't, well, that part's great. I would love to watch Caitlin Clark.
She's 5 o'clock our time.
But so I'm flipping around, and the part that like I wanted to run past you had nothing to do with college basketball and everything to do with the commercial that came on. So I'm sitting there, all of a sudden SGA and Chet Holmgren are on my screen with a commercial for AT&T, and it speaks for itself.
AT&T just sent me a heads up on the best plan for me.
That's cool.
They know what a pro wants.
What a pro needs.
Whatever makes me happy.
Sets you free.
And I'm thanking you for knowing exactly what a pro wants, what a pro needs. Whatever makes me happy sets me free.
Good. A little bit flat. We'll get better.
Okay, guys.
My head.
Before we dissect this, Bill, what song was that?
I have no idea, Ash. I'm over here choking.
I do know.
I'm not even listening.
You don't know that song? What a girl wants, what a girl
needs.
Christina Aguilera.
Christina Aguilera, and not only is it Christina Aguilera that they sing and then they're harmonizing together, and I just thought it was like ridiculously stupid.
One of them could sing.
It's been in my head all weekend now as a result.
Christina Aguilera or that version?
That version.
Oh.
What
a pro needs.
One of them was on key and the other wasn't. Do we know who?
AT&T just sent me a heads up on the best plan for me.
That's cool.
They know what a pro wants.
What a pro needs.
Whatever makes me happy.
Sets you free.
And I'm thanking you for knowing exactly what a pro wants, what a pro needs. Whatever makes me happy sets me free.
Good. A little bit flat. We'll get better.
I think it was SGA.
Goes way harder than it should.
Yeah.
So
Bill, well, this brings me to my point. So when we were waiting to start the show,
Ash.
Bill thought he was alone.
Okay.
And that I was, that he was just here by himself and we weren't listening. And he was singing a song that he just made up on the fly. And it was like, Bill in the room by himself, by himself.
I was.
Bill, you should sing a couple words from the song.
I mean, I'm not under contract. I have to wait till the album drops or at least the single. So we got to just.
You can give us a snippet. They do that on late night all the time.
No.
I didn't realize we could hear each other when we're technology behind the curtain. Producer Aaron has to let us in, but I guess if you just sign in, you can hear everything. So I'll stop singing or talking to myself in general, which is what I do.
It was on key. It was on key.
Okay.
It was a
I'm
little
sorry I missed that. I bet it was fantastic. I'm not sure that it was as good as SGA.
Wait,
and
I have an
Chet,
idea.
I would go to see them in concert.
Why don't you and Bill role play? You're Chet, you're SGA. Let's hear you guys sing it.
No.
I
have a counter idea.
Let's hear you guys
like with the Rockets proposal.
What a pro wants, what a pro needs. Go ahead.
What a pro wants. Well, I can't. My throat hurts so much.
Bill's throat hurts. He's gonna go drink some tea. That was a fun way to end the show because I thank SGA and Chet for that. That made my weekend. Although, like I said, I can't get that song out of my head now. But super fun. As was this show. This was quite enjoyable, gang. But for now, for Ashley Nicole Moss and for Bill Ryder, our NBA insider, I'm John Gonzalez. We're going to be back at it tomorrow. At least those two will be back at it tomorrow, right? It's you guys tomorrow. Fantastic.
Bill, holding it down.
Oh, let's go. We're going to sing. It's a musical edition. There's going to be
like Glee.
Beyond the Arc, the musical. Like
Beyond
Glee.
the Arc musical, they're going to sing the entire thing. It's going to be amazing. Don't miss it. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.